So I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm Sölvi Fannar Viðarsson, and I'm born in Iceland, but I live in England. I have a lot of text if you have a hard time understanding me, but I work as an actor, but I've also worked over a quarter of a century as in the health profession. And I will be talking about emotions. So I'm cramming a lot of information into a short talk. So let's get to it. What is an emotion? But before I ask that question, for the sake of reference, I have to ask, what is a calorie? And this is a little strange, but a calorie is a unit used to measure energy, and it's the energy that is needed to warm up one liter of water by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so we have 1 liter of water, and we want to boil it, and it takes 100 calories. But the question is, how many emotions do we need to boil 1 liter of water? And this is still a little strange. But what do calories, emotions, and feelings have in common? But I mention calories because it's actually about what they don't. Emotions are neurological reactions to an emotional stimulus. A feeling is the side product of our brain perceiving an emotion and assigning a certain meaning to it. This is very important. It's hard to measure emotions and feelings, unlike calories. So why am I confusing the matter? Because I am very confused. And of course, as we know, it's very unmanly to be confused. So today, the closest to official recognition of more than the 2 genders are 6. And even though the title mix is widely accepted here in the UK, we have a long way to go until the gender identity gap is closed. But talking about gaps, being from Iceland, of course I have to brag. Iceland's gender pay gap is the lowest in the world. On International Women's Day in 2018, Iceland passed a corporate law requiring firms to prove that they are paying both genders the same wages. Otherwise face a fine and public shame. And it's estimated that Iceland's gender pay gap will be closed by 2022. And you know, I have 2 daughters and a son, so I could not be happier. But the gender pay gap is based on sex, male or female. Women have been oppressed for thousands of years, and this is a fact. Of course, societies, as well as the humans inhabiting them, are complex. Through society evolving throughout time, there have been a few societal developments, actually more than a few, but some of the bad ones have stuck around. Among the worst ones are gender stereotypes. Here we see, here on the right, that in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, of apprenticeships, there is only 8% women. And my brother belongs to the other group. He is a nurse. But it's not just, you know, wages or the jobs. 59% of people agree that it's more acceptable to be a tomboy than to be a feminine boy. And in the light of the much needed Me Too movement, 69% of men aged under 35 said that stereotypes had a damaging effect on perceptions of what it means to be a man or woman. Of course, our daily lives are, you know, complicated enough. But our sex, male and female, is one thing, gender is quite another, as I found out just reading the news the other day. Kate Daniels, sex and education teacher, says in an educational video intended for children made by the BBC, we know that we have got male and female, but there are over 100, if not more, gender identities now. And I saw this, I couldn't believe it. But I checked. Facebook have 71 gender identities. And I even found a list of 112 gender identities. And please read them carefully because I'm going to quote them later. So this, which I grew up with, becomes this, at least. So no wonder maybe I'm confused. Probably one of the oldest ones is hermaphrodite, which is generally referred to as intersex today. And Hermaphroditus was the son of Hermes and Aphrodite, hence the name. But he had a secret admirer. The Naiad Salmacis fell desperately in love with a young, irresistibly handsome boy, and upon being rejected by him, she clung to his naked body, praying to the gods to unite their two bodies into one, so they would never be separated. And so they were. Their bodies merged into one form, a creature of both sexes. And the Greek philosopher and scientist Theophrastus, who is actually studied both with Plato and Aristoteles, and was Aristoteles' successor, he suggested a link between hermaphroditus and marriage by embodying both masculine and feminine qualities. Hermaphroditus symbolized the coming together of men and women in sacred union. Emotions and feelings are shared by everyone. And since our emotions and feelings are not all inherited via our DNA, they tend to be affected and influenced by external factors. And that simply means that emotionally we are shaped by our surroundings and the society that we grow up in. And the society I grew up in Iceland, which is a rock in the middle of the Atlantic, I can tell you is different than here. But nature and nurture most certainly do apply. And very interestingly, we do not have to search back far in human history to find that our lives are very different from the reality that our ancestors faced. But at the same time, it seems that in every part of human history, the humans of that time consider that they are living in the most important one. Have you given this thought? It's actually very interesting. This is the feeling you get from reading, through things that are connected with time. But in reality, and if we think rationally, 1,000 years from now, almost no one will remember me or any of us. But there's no reason to let that make us feel bad. And we can even choose to look at it a different way. Instead of dreading our own mortality and unlikeliness of immortality, we can choose to prioritize differently and make different choices. Some of the most important ones are to find ways to reduce stress, depression, and anxiety. And I want to bring to your attention the fact that it's very different a lot of the time how the different sexes, male and female, actually get treated, both for problems that have to do with the body, as well as emotional problems. And just to name one simple example, they have now estimated that over 8,000 women died in the UK from heart disease that went untreated, most likely because we think it's a man's disease. But the day my life changed forever, August 10th, 8th, 2010, was the day that my grandfather died. And why do I mention that? Because then I realized at the funeral, it's too late to tell them everything. And I was so lucky that I got to spend 3 hours, for several reasons, I got to spend 3 hours with my grandfather on his deathbed. He was coming in and going out of consciousness, but he was instrumental in my upbringing, as well as my other grandparents. It's different between societies and everything. But I got to tell him everything and thank him for how incredibly important he was in my life. So we have to do this now. So if you have some unfinished business with people, please do so. We don't have to be on the brink of that to do it. All the bad and the good, and that of course includes ourselves day in and day out. And this is very, very cliche, I know. But whoever we are, whichever our gender identity, we can only do what we can to have a better life, to be healthier and happier. And I've dedicated my life, a bigger part of my life, to prove that. But it matters where we're going, because the less stress, anxiety, and depression we have to deal with, the easier it will become to listen to and follow our heart. Learning to love and forgive ourselves as well as others, and of course the best way not to judge others too much is to not to be judging ourselves all the time. And here again, we have a huge difference between men and women, male and female. Of course, we're already living the magic spell that ever is our life, and deep in our hearts, we all know who we are. So I want to ask you to see in your mind's eye that you're in the woods. I don't know, maybe you don't like the woods. If that's the case, I'm sorry. But in the woods, and I see something on the ground, it's a branch, and I choose to think of it as a magic wand, and I pick it up. And this is something that I do regularly and learned actually from my better half, Nati, who actually wrote a PhD on different things about the sexes in today's society and past societies. Back to the magic wand. We're standing in the forest. I say to the trees, because I'm a functional medicine practitioner, I touch the trees and I say, coriander, because coriander is actually very healthy if you don't know. But my darling Nati, with her gentle, beautiful hand, delicate hand, she touches the trees and says, as if saying a magic spell, be healthy. Thank you.